Hey, welcome to Talking in Stations. This is Matterall. The date is August 31st, 2020. And we're going to go over today's news in EVE Online. The big news, first of all, is a Keepstar that was taken out in KVN. So we'll have a look at that. And that was Fountain. That leaves only one Keepstar in that region. So the official fall of Fountain is a few days away when that last Keepstar goes down. Then it will be all about Delve and period basis and invading Imperium's stronghold. So we'll see how things proceed after this. We'll talk about that Keepstar in just a second. All right, let's have a look at the statistics for EVE Online for today. The most violent regions in the last 24 hours has been starting with Delve, with 1,479 ships destroyed, 1,054 pods catch, add 891 ships destroyed, 524 of those pods also destroyed. And finally, Fountain, where the KVN Keepstar died today, only 800 ships destroyed with 404 pods. In Empire regions, the Forge is listed at number 1 with 2,929 ships destroyed. Domain has 2,503. This is interesting, with 1,367 pods. That's Domain. And of course, Niarja is in Domain now. That system has recently become very dangerous to travel in. And then finally, in third place, Lone Trek, which borders on the Forge, 2,648, 757 ships destroyed. Most violent systems, specific systems. In the last 3 hours, it looks like there's something going on in Paragon Falls in MTO2 TAC 2. Maybe we'll take a look at that in a minute. But over the last 24 hours, 1DQ, the headquarters of Delve, saw 281 ships destroyed. That means that the other 1,200 ships were destroyed in other places in Delve. So we'll try to figure out what's going on in Delve. Going back to most violent systems in the last 24 hours, in Stain, interesting. There was a clash in CJF TAC 1P. And then finally in Delve, another 220 ships in ZXB. That is the border, I believe, between, let's have a look. Yeah, that's the border with Fountain. So some border skirmishes with that region. Okay, let's take a quick look at low-sec. Most violent systems, the traditional Tama, 322 ships destroyed. Huala in the Bleak Lens, 279 ships destroyed. And then, of course, Rancer in the top 3, rounding out the third place with 116 ships destroyed. Now, most violent systems in high-sec. This category has changed forever recently, as the Triglavian invasions destabilize security in high-security systems. They essentially knock out the security apparatus that's supposed to protect players. And the invading aliens, as NPCs, may destroy you if you come into their territory, or Edencom, the combination of the Empires, essentially their police force, might destroy you if you have worked with the Triglavians. So you can get killed from either side, depending on your standing. But also, in some situations, security itself will completely drop away, as it did in Niarja. So this category of most violent systems in high-sec is no longer the domain of gankers that set up and destroy you and then get destroyed themselves, augmenting the numbers. This is actually a category that's now a little more mixed, with players that are actually doing combat in high sec, where security has been set aside. So in the first position here, of course, is Niarja, with 390 ships destroyed, 259 pods. And that is a new statistic because podding is allowed in systems that are full liminality, in other words, where security has been completely dropped. So we will see podding happening. In second place, Pekura of Lone Trek, 71 ships destroyed. And finally, in Metropolis, third place, Metropolis is Ultranor. I believe that's near the old Eve University. That was where their headquarters was, just around there. And that is 122 ships destroyed, no pods. As far as systems in the last 24 hours, so what I just read, the 390 ships destroyed in Niarja was actually in the last 3 hours, reading off the 3-hour chart. But if we look at the last day or so, Niarja augments from 390 ships, again, 3 hours ago, to 1,660. So you can see there's a lot of activity all day long with 1,142 ships destroyed. Sorry, pods destroyed. So that's 1,600 ships and almost as many pods. Jita used to top the list all the time, is now in second place with far, far fewer, 476 ships destroyed, 319 pods, usually the product of war declarations that allow capsuleers to kill each other. And then finally, Pekura, we saw them on the 3-hour list, so something is going on right now. In Pekura, 320 ships have been destroyed in the last 24 hours. It looks like 71 of them have been destroyed in the last 3 hours, so something may be ongoing there. One of the big stories entering the consciousness of EVE players, and we can deal with this in a different section where we actually analyze some of the meta, some of the psychological warfare that goes on in the game, are the NPC numbers coming out of nullsec. And that means how much are people ratting, how much money are they making, and we can extrapolate by how many rats they kill. We can see that a place is doing a lot of business, basically, or no business at all. So in the last 24 hours, the top spots are all controlled by either Horde or Fraternity, or a combination of both, with PanFam or PandaFam, however you call this group. PTAC-Z in Oasa tops the list with 47,700. In second place, Cobalt Edge with QTAC-V system, and that is 46,200. And in third place, also in Cobalt Edge, MOTAC-Y with 45,405. So that is a combination of Horde and Fraternity ratting like crazy. Now we've seen these numbers go from 40,000 to about 60,000, which is a pretty big jump. And that is because those areas are not well hunted at this moment. Most of those areas are kind of free to NPC as much as they want. A lot of the action is happening in Delve, which is why we don't see Delve on the top 10 list. They used to top the list all the time. Okay, so that's the statistics for where the activity has been in the last 24 hours. Let's have a look at, well, let's drill down on some of these interesting areas here. MTO2 in the last 3 hours has seen some action. I bet you as Horde. Best way to see this is you can see it's on the border of Venal and Paragon Falls, but we'll just grab this, take it to kill boards. We'll just pop in the system. When it comes up, well, it was MTO, wasn't it? Okay, so, all right. It's not who I thought it was. We'll have a little view here of the last stuff going down here. And it looks like Trigger Happy is attacking no value. So far, I see a lot of drones. We can see some faxes on the field. That means that it's probably an engagement of significance. So we'll have a look at that fax and see what fight that belongs to. Yeah, so this is Brothers of Tangra, Northern Coalition, going up against Trigger Happy, and it's a modest fight here. This is happening right now. You can see that it looks like a couple Astra houses for Trigger Happy have been put down or are involved in the fight. So those might be structures that are being attacked. You can see Trigger Happy as they're sporting a Nightmare battleship fleet. They are up against no value, and let's see how many allies they have. Well, it looks like it's mostly no value. There's a couple of NC guys in here in Macarials. Definitely majority no value. So we'll see how they go. Let's take a look at these guys no value. I'm not that familiar with them. This is again with the Peregrine Falls, no value.
Yeah, no value is a PanFam friendly alliance that lives in the region.
All right, you're hearing the voice of my friend Gregorian. He's a fellow researcher at Talking in Stations. How you doing, Gregorian? Oh, I have push to talk. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for stopping in. Okay, so they are an ally of PanFam, which is why we saw some Northern Coalition fighters in there. And wow, they're actually pretty big. They're over 1,500. What are these guys made of?
I think they might be Russian, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, Crimson Tide, SpaceX Galactic. This is a big one. Neocortex. Yeah, it looks like they're a Russian group. So Trigger Happy is looks like they're either defending their Astra houses or
Trigger Happy has been doing a lot of content citadel according to my understanding.
What are content citadels so that people understand?
If content citadels are when you drop citadels in hostile space for the purpose of getting them to bash it and get a fight out of it.
Right.
And from what I've heard, Trigger Happy has started doing that a lot in PanFam space now that there aren't as many there aren't really as huge fleets active out there because most of the active PvPers are in PanFam space are in Fountain.
Mm-hmm. All right, so they're taking advantage of the fight ability since PanFam is deployed essentially. Okay, let's have a look at. So that is no value versus Trigger Happy happening right now in Peregrine Falls in MTO2 TAC 2. Okay, let's look at what else. Looks like there's a lot of activity in Delve, so I wanted to investigate that. Let's go there. Actually, we'll see that as a region. See what kinds of things have been attacked recently. Wonder if Delve is just that busy all the time. Used to be. Yeah, it looks like hordes just roaming around with tests. This is basically harassment. They're coming in and taking some stuff. It looks like a hodgepodge of fraternity test. Let's see who else. Well, this is interesting. No, okay, that's not what I thought it was. Yeah, Braves in there. So yeah, this is the war, and this is what it looks like in Delve. Let's look at Capsuleers killed in the last 24. Harder to see, I think, with the dark. So let's actually move this to light. It's going to blind everybody. Yeah, I can see that red now. So yeah, ZXB on the border of Fountain. That's the other side of YTAC 2. We'll be hearing more about that in the near future. And 1DQ, which is just off here to the left. 1DQ is a peculiar spot for a capital system. Normally, you want, what's the usual Delve headquarters? It's either NOLTAC or sometimes DTAC W. But 1DQ is an interesting place. The reason that they picked 1DQ, this is an assumption, I don't know exactly why they did. It's a secret. But if you look at TrueSec, it's really close to the best space in E4 ratting. And I think that's why they put it in there. Security. Look how purple this area is where 1DQ is. 1DQ itself is not great TrueSec, but it sits right next to a lot of really good TrueSec. I'll get you in there close so you can see all this area right here. And this YTAC O is like prime pickings for making money and ratting and harvesting and just using the area because it's a sealed off area. You know, it's usually Sino jam, so nobody can jump in on you. And for anybody to get there, you have plenty of systems that lead up to it. So it's like BTAC-R, and it's a dead-end system. So there's lots of alert that people are headed your way, so you can get safe if you need to. But it's also got a 0.93 or a negative 0.93, so that's great security. And that's where a lot of people will make money. And also this whole area here, 5BT, 8WA, MOTAC, these areas here. A ton of ratting goes on there. In fact, let's take a look at the ratting delta just to see what's going on. Yeah, well, I think Delve in general right now is kind of shut down. Goonsform is a U.S. time zone group, so you would imagine this would be pretty high. But it looks like there's a lot of ratting going up here in, I can't read that, 7U? Yeah, 7UTB. I think Delve's just shut down. It doesn't normally look like this. So that's pretty severe. Let's take a look at Oasa. Just this is a delta, remember, this is a delta. Yeah, that's more like you know, the region you should see some concentrations of ratting. But let's look at actual 24-hour NPC kills. No. There it is. Okay. You can see where the hotspots are right in the center here in dead-end systems. This is Oasa, right? This is the place that's getting like doing tens of thousands. Let's look at Delve in comparison. Now, you'll see more red on here. That doesn't mean there's more going on. That means that that's the heaviest in the area by comparison to its area. So the red would represent the hottest systems in this place. But let's look at their totals here. This is 7,000, not respectable. This is 7,900. That's the hottest area. Yeah, we can see right here NPC kills. In the last hour, I think it's been 97, but this has done about 8,000 NPC kills today. And let's go back again to Oasa and compare and see what kind of, yeah. So that was 8,000 in Delve. Let's look at this system. The hotspot in Oasa, 44,000. So it's about 4 times as much. And even the second hottest system is 45,000. I think we covered this when we talked about NPCs, but these are very secure systems right in the middle of Oasa. It takes you a while to get there. They're probably cyno-jammed. You have to fly in or find a wormhole in order to surprise anyone. But even these pedestrian areas here, like RJ6 has 31,000. Remember, Delve's highest system had 8,000. And here, if you're in the 8,000 bracket, you're kind of mediocre in this system. So that's as a comparison, the amount of harvesting activity going on in Oasa compared to Delve right now is about 4 or more times as much. So that is expected because Delve is under invasion, or basically the barbarians are at the gate. They're not actually in Delve yet, but they have surrounded it, and they intend to go in at some point. There's not a lot of harvesting. As you saw in our opening, there's a lot of activity in Delve, a lot of ships being destroyed, but those ships are all over the place. Here's Delve again. Let's see where those ships are actually getting destroyed. Sorry, we should be in Delve, and let's look at where the ships are being destroyed. Ships and pod kills. Well, 1DQ did suffer quite a bit, but it's not just there. You see the border here is also a hot zone, but it's spread out everywhere. 52 ships destroyed here, 52 here, 18 in T-TAC-J. So if you look at the Bastion pocket over here, the 7U that we looked at that had a lot of ratting going on, 52 ships have been destroyed there. So where they're having some activity, they're having a lot of, where they're having some NPC activity, where they're harvesting and making some money, they are getting attacked as well and destroyed. So that's in this pocket up here. Also, I think you just, in one tax map, that's usually a place where you have a headquarters. It's on the border of Iridia. And that's usually when you're in Delve and you hold Delve, one tax map is usually where you're at. It's one tac SMEB. 93 ships destroyed there. So what you're seeing is a lot of little activity all over Delve. And let's look at Oasa in comparison. Do a refresh here. So that's, okay, that's Delve. It refreshed. So let's go to Oasa. There's a lot of zeros, and that is the comparison. So the takeaway here in this little analysis is Oasa doesn't have a lot of ships being destroyed from players, and it's doing a ton of harvesting of money through NPC ratting, and it looks like it's unabated, and it's about 4 or 5 times the amount in its most valuable system. So whereas Delve is making 8,000 in one system, Oasa's top system is making 47,000, and there's many other systems that are at work creating 30 to 40,000 too. So it is a ton of activity here. And on the flip side, in Delve, you see ships getting destroyed all over the place in small amounts, not in huge amounts, but small little amounts. That means there's a lot of pressure. I assume that the ships being destroyed are either attackers or defenders, but a ship is destroying another ship. That means there is activity there, which means there is pressure there. If you're out ratting, you are going to get jumped by people who are the barbarians at the gate who are jumping in to help themselves to some easy kills. Whereas you don't have that situation in Oasa. So I hope that's relatively clear. Oasa is safer, and people are making a ton of money there right now. That's normal. Delve is like that normally, but Delve is under war at this moment. And so it is shut down for NPC ratting, and ships are dying all over the place. It's very spread out in Delve where the actual casualties are. And we have over 1,000 casualties in one day, so. Burgoyne, you have any insight you want to say before we go on?
I'm not sure I have anything to say right now.
Okay. So let me go back to Delve. Once again, you see those systems, and I don't mean to over-exaggerate how many ships are destroyed. And we already saw that it's like over 1,000 in 24 hours, which not that much for a null sec, right? But what's interesting to me is every system, almost every system, has some ships destroyed. So even in little pockets like 6Z, TAC, CK, let's look at, you have 2 ships destroyed there, or 4 ships, and then in MTAC S, you have 4. These are popular areas to kind of hide in. You can see that it's in the middle of the map, and it's also enclosed. So it's a dead end system. It's a dead end constellation. So, 3 out of 5 systems there have 2 or more ships destroyed in the last 24 hours. And yeah, so that's it's really spread out. This is very interesting how widespread the attacks are. Now, it doesn't mean people aren't surviving and people aren't ratting anyway and people aren't having a great time. That doesn't mean any of that. It just means there's a lot of PvP activity in Delve right now, for better or worse. Okay, let's head back to the big news of the day. Well, actually,
You mean the Keepstar?
Yeah, the Keepstar, but I'm going to delay that for just a second because I want to make sure we're going a little too deep into this stuff, but I did want to go back to, the statistics, just to make sure there wasn't any other anomaly. So we investigated Delve and why there's 1,300 or nearly 1,400 ships destroyed. We looked at MTO, in Paragon, and Niarja, of course, is very busy. That's to be expected since it's a high-sec system with no security apparatus to prevent people from killing each other and Triglavians from killing them. Pikura, I think, was kicking off right now. There's 58 ships destroyed in the last 3 hours and a total of 312. Let's take a quick look at Pikura. This is in Lone Trek. You can see it's the hotspot in Lone Trek. Lone Trek is a region right next to the Forge. And let's look at what the casualties look like. Well, actually, let's look at the overview and see where the peaks are. It looks like this has been active. Ships killed in the last 48 hours. It's been pretty solidly active all day long. So this peaked around, I think this is actually more than 24 hours ago, so that doesn't count. So, but it's still been active. You can see these peaks over here, these little ones. So in the last 18 hours, there's been a lot of activity. And again, we know there's activity in the last 3 hours. So let's look at what those kills look like. And oh, NPCs. These are NPCs. So maybe ships are dying to NPCs. What do you think of that? Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. There's a lot of small ships. So this isn't a fight. It doesn't look like it's a fleet fight. It looks like it's just a lot of activity. NPCs are killing some people too. Yeah, I don't see it. If it's here and it's a fight, I don't see it. Okay, so we investigated what we wanted to off the statistics. Now let's go to the big news in the war. And we have some, let's go to the map. Today was the fall of a Keepstar in Fountain. This was KVN. It should be right around here. Oh, I'm in the wrong area. It's up here. Is this map not correct? Let's straighten up. Yeah, it is Fountain. Okay, there it was. KVN, I don't know if you can read that tiny writing. I wish I could make that bigger, but I can't. KVN is an interesting system because not only did it have a Keepstar in it that was destroyed today, but you can see that long jump that it takes. Let's look at Fountain in general. So there's this long jump here all the way down to the south. So this jump will connect the north to the south. And that's why it's such a key system. So you kind of have Fountain in a few different sections. It's almost like 3 different sections. You have its northern areas here. And then you have a central area that is more or less NPC space. And then you have a southern area over here. And as you can see, there's really 2 main spheres for jumping, and that is the northern and the southern. And if you're in the middle, you can hit part of the north or part of the south. So KVN was a system that is used as kind of like a southern jump point to get up to SeaTac N. And that allows that you to travel basically from the south all the way to the north, like pure blind, way up here. I'm gonna get some drawing tools, that'll be funner. Not only can you make it all the way up to, whoa, let's back up there, to the north of Fountain, but from Fountain, it is not far from getting to Cloud Ring and then even pure blind. And it's amazing if you just conceptualize that if you live in Delve, and this is what's happened for the last 3 years, Delve could move up into Fountain through YTAC 2, cross Fountain through, through SeaTac N to JTAC 5. I think that's around here somewhere. These are tiny little dots to be able to grab. And from JTAC 5, essentially you jump up into pure blind. Actually, I'm going to find JTAC 5. J5A. Not JTAC 5. Let's see. Yeah, it's not JTAC 5, it's J5A. Too many tacs. But you can see that's at the top of Fountain, and that propels you right into Cloud Ring. And Cloud Ring, you can go into pure blind. So what I want to demonstrate is that from Delve, you could jump through Fountain, travel it quickly with just a few jumps. You could get through there, and I believe it was 8 minutes at one point. And this is a capital fleet, maybe even a super capital fleet. By taking that one gate helps you a lot. And you could jump all the way up to Cloud Ring, and Cloud Ring can put you in position to strike pure blind and fade. And that's exactly what happened in 2008. That's where a lot of the pressure from the Imperium, that's how a lot of that pressure was being applied into the low areas of Cloud Ring and pure blind. And those areas at first were populated by Horde in Fade. But Horde said, you know what? We don't want to be here anymore. This place is too small for us. We're taking off to Geminate. And they started growing there. That allowed them a little bit of stability. They were no longer the meat shield of the people that were further north, that were Dead Coalition or Guardians of the Galaxy at the time. They were in decline. And so when Horde moved out, there was a vacuum there that allowed the Imperium to continue further north into Fade. And so there was a lot of fighting going on up there for a long time. And that essentially snowballed into a full-blown invasion of the North. And Sword Dragon famously made a deal. Of course, the North came to help, and there was a big fight. That was 2018. The fight was essentially the apex of that whole campaign was X-47. Titans were lost, but really the plug was pulled because servers just couldn't handle that warfare at that scale. So the North kind of retreated back. A deal was struck. Sword Dragon decided that he was going to save his friends without telling them, apparently, or maybe he did tell them. I think he did tell them, but they just said, whatever you want. Sword Dragon gave a bunch of faction Fortizars and bought himself some time. And he bought the North a few months. And so that's how that 2018 war kind of cooled off. There was a treaty that was signed. So that's kind of how that corridor worked. Now that corridor is completely shut off. Fountain is now in the possession of the northern forces that have come back, and they are now sitting in Iridia and Fountain, and they put pressure on a Keepstar today in KVN. Okay, so let's go to KVN. There's your backstory. think I have some things I can share with you. Let's have a look. So today, the original, there we go. Yeah, this was taken around, I want to say it was probably around 10 hours ago. So this, you could see there was about 1,800 ships that jumped into that system to attack. We'll take a closer look at KVN. This was an undefended Keepstar, so it wasn't expected to be a huge fight, but we were looking at the scale to see how the North was going to take this Keepstar. In recent events, Keepstars have had a hard time being destroyed. Well, actually, you got to give credit to the Imperium for defending the YTAC-2 Keepstar. I think the Northern Forces PAPI attacked it too soon. They were pretty happy with the rate at which Fountain was falling. I think they wanted to do some kind of a headshot, a demonstration of power, and they went right for the source to YTAC-2 to show that they essentially controlled everything in Fountain. And in doing so, they hastily prepared. Killa B, who's one of the main FCs, he was not feeling well. He wasn't up to FCing. So Pro God Legend took over, and that's not something that he normally does. So he stepped into a role that wasn't, I should say, a practiced role for him. And some things went wrong that weren't expected. And it didn't matter. These are not excuses. These are just explanations on what happened. A bombing run was able to hit Ravens in a disastrous way for PAPI, and it destroyed the Ravens. The Ravens were not backed up properly by any ship that could apply damage to the Keepstar. Therefore, the damage stopped. When the damage stopped, the Keepstar was able to repair and save itself, and it went into an invulnerable status, completely winning the day for the Imperium. So
yeah, there were two Raven fleets.
thanks.
Keepstar, one belonging to Test and the other belonging to two corporations in Pandemic Horde. It's just that the Horde Raven fleet at the time was not large enough to keep the Keepstar paused on its own. And since time dilation does not slow down the Keepstar timer, that allowed the Keepstar to reinforce.
I see. Okay, so, but the pressure was taken off the Keepstar by a good bombing run by Sister Bliss of Initiative and the Big Red Boat from Imperium. They scored 2 hits. There was also a Russian group there that also did a partial hit with same thing, bombs. And so that really wiped them out. I think they actually had the right combination of bombs too. The boat was actually shooting electronic, if I'm not mistaken. And those worked really well against Ravens, I believe. So it was
because Ravens are generally shield tanked unless they were their armor boost Ravens, like that particular Horde Raven fleet was flying. And Electron is typically the damage type that shield tank is weakest against.
I see. Okay. So they move that over. So yeah, so here's a better picture of KVN. So that was a few weeks ago, and there was a really nice victory by the Imperium at that time. The next big victory for them, if we set aside Niarsha, which they claim as a victory, but was a proxy war at best. But in Fountain, there was another victory I forget what system it was. There was another Keepstar that was under pressure. It was going to be destroyed. Again, we had a ton of subcapitals in there. Again, as a demonstration of power, they were using subcapitals, not any capitals or supercapitals. And the server could not handle the amount of people that were in system. And it wasn't very many. I believe it was 2,500. It wasn't what we've seen in the maximum of this campaign has been 4,400, which is a lot. The servers held up that day, but not on the second occasion where a good 2,400 people fighting was enough to destroy the servers, and the server actually crashed. And that saved the Keepstar because, again, once it crashes, CCP brings it back up. Once it comes back up, it starts ticking away to safety. And there was no way in tie-dye for damage to be applied fast enough to halt it again, to continue to destroy it. So it ticked right down to 0, went invulnerable, and the day was won by the Imperium with a bit of a timeout called by the servers. And that, I believe, created the necessity to change how the North is going to destroy Keepstars going south. And we saw the first demonstration of that today with 200. Let's have a look at what that looked like. Do you have that D-scan by any chance?
No, I don't have a D-scan.
I had it. It's around here somewhere. But I'll just tell you, it was 310 Titans. At the end of the day, that's how many jumped in. I had various D-scans that went from 247 all the way up to 310. 310 was the max, which is probably when they all arrived. Damage was applied. That thing ticked down without tie-dye, without server instability, and was destroyed quickly. KVN falls. Again, Fountain is already taken over in general by PAPI forces, mostly owned by Horde. And KVN was the second to last Keepstar. We only have one left out of the original 6, and that is YTAC 2, which will, I imagine, be attacked sometime soon.
I heard that Fraternity already reinforced its shields.
Oh, so the armor timer might be as early as tomorrow? Or I forget what the shield to armor ratio is. I think it's actually 24 hours or 48 hours. We'll see. Actually, we can check. No, we can't check the timer on the Keepstar. But here is the sovereignty for KVN. This was taken over in, as you can see down here, 2018. It belonged to Imperium. That's when they took it. I think they kind of had it even before that a little bit, but that's been a long time in their possession. And only recently was it taken over by Pandemic Horde. And this is an aggressive takeover. It's not like it was traded or sold. Goonswarm actually acquired it by a sale. They didn't take it over. So this is actually it being taken away, and that happened mid-month, so a couple weeks ago. And now the infrastructure that was built there by Imperium, the Keepstar, has been destroyed. Yeah, you can see that was around, I believe that was around 1800 UTC. So I want to say that was probably around 10 hours ago. All right, I'm sorry I'm not able to look at chat. Otherwise, I would answer some questions. You have any comments on the Keepstar before we go on?
Not really.
It is what it is. I hate that phrase.
It was fairly standard for undefended Keepstar bash.
Yeah. All right. We'll take a little bit of a break here. I'm going to test out this thing here. We'll be back in just a second. Yeah. Okay. We're back. You'll have to forgive me. I'm learning new things as we go here. So we're looking at the scoreboard here for how expensive is a Keepstar. It's a good question. The KVN Keepstar, well, let's look at it. There is a definitive answer to that. It's 198 billion. This may not be accurate. Depends on this system will actually take information from the game on what something is worth. But the only way to know if something is actually worth the amount is the information on the server has to be current. And that's not always the case. In other words, you may find an item that's worth a certain amount of money and it turns out to be priceless. But on paper, because of the game and the way it's constructed, it has a certain price point that is not priceless. So it just depends.
Yeah, the Zkill board estimates for Keepstar values, among other Earth ships, are not always reliable because they're not really traded on the market that much.
Right. And even when items are traded on the market, if it's not traded on the market, it has a default that it will go to. But even when things are on the market, their numbers might not be right. So what I'm saying is that there is a price tag on this Keepstar. It may not be fully accurate, but it is the best that we have. And so this Keepstar went for 171 billion, and overall price tag with its fitting was 192 billion. And that sounds very close to right. Keepstars can be built right now, I believe, for, I've heard estimates from 140 to 160 billion. That's on the cheaper side. Normally they're building for a long time, they were building for 180 and above. So this one at 171 seems to be pretty accurate. And then what kind of rigs did it have? It looks like it had T1. Well, those are service slots. The rigs are here. It only had one rig and it was a T1. So that's really where you get a lot of expensive. The expensive part of a Keepstar is the rigs. If they're T2, they're usually incredibly expensive. And this was geared up for a super weapon. So it was basically meant to defend, but there was no defense. This Keepstar died anyway. This ended up belonging to Goon Swarm, so it did not belong to the Initiative, even though the Initiative populated the area along with Bastion. So this was Goon Swarm proper. And that is a rare sight. Take that in for a second. The Keepstar being destroyed by the Imperium, defended or not, the idea that that could happen is not something that was even imaginable last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, the Imperium lost their first Keepstar up in Pureblind, and that was the one that ended up on Pandemic Horde's kill board. But the first Imperium Keepstars that were on the Imperium's kill board were just over the past few weeks.
Yeah. Thank you. I can see chat now. Lord Kellis tells us that there was a gunner in the Keepstar, and he did fire the super weapon once. I believe that's probably all he had time for, because if I'm not mistaken, it seemed to really go pretty fast.
Yeah, that was a really fast Keepstar bash compared to the past few in Fountain.
Yeah. Turn something on here. All right, this thing will probably bark at me. Yeah, patron. I'll get to it. If it takes away those commercials, I'll do it. I just don't know how it works. If that takes away commercials. Totally worth supporting Z Killboard. He went free for a long time, and then he's like, why not? You see a ton of Leviathans on here. Let's see who actually killed it.
Yeah, Test brought Shield Titans.
Any idea why it was Shield Titans? I imagine they're faster to travel.
Shield tank ships also typically do more damage, since the damage mods don't compete with tank mods for low slots.
Good point.
That's why the Leviathans and stuff are generally all up at the top of the damage list.
Yeah. Right. And it didn't look contested, so I think that damage is your main consideration at that point. You just want to get through it as fast as possible.
It's also just that Legacy really likes shield tanks. They have a really strong preference to shield tank, even more than how a shield tank is favored in the nullsec meta most of the time. Legacy favors it even more than that.
Right. They were actually one of the only groups championing Shield Titans when everybody else was using armor. I believe they were the first group saying, no, we're getting into Shield. There were some people in NC Dot that were like, no, Shield is the way to go. You want to get into the Minmatar Ragnarok, or you want to get into the Kaldari Leviathan. These ships are faster, and that'll get you to the place on time quicker, and that has its own advantages. So it depended on the use case, but really everybody that was getting into Titans were getting into armor Titans, either the Amarian Avatar, which is a beautiful big ship that's iconic, or the other iconic ship, which is the Galente Erebus. So those were the ones that most people were getting into, and I think most alliances wanted you to get into that so they could be unified and provide logistics and repair help for armor instead of armor plus whatever else.
But, yeah, armor tanked Ragnarok is also a fairly common thing.
Well, yes, that's the thing that makes Minmatar very special. And the reason I think a lot of PvPers like Minmatar ships is because you can go shield, which it naturally wants to do, or you can go armor, which it's not so bad at. But the one thing you get is speed anyway. So it gives you that diversity that might surprise your opponent. So if I'm roaming around and I see a Kaldari ship, which is, I know, a shield ship, I'm going to already know my situation and if I should run or if I should fight. But when you come across a Minmatar ship, you're not always sure how it's fitted out, and that might throw you off. And so that's why I think a lot of PvPers used to like Minmatar more than any other group, at least the ship preferences. And that is also the case for the Titan. It can go either way, shield or armor. Okay, so that's the big news. KVN Keepstar destroyed. YTAC 2 ANO is the final Keepstar in Fountain. That appears to be on the menu quickly and probably without resistance. Now that a Supercapital fleet has entered Fountain, we saw 300 Titans on grid. That is not something that the Imperium will match. Not from Delve. They will have to cross a gate in order to make any kind of attempt with Supercapitals. We may see a bold move. You never know. This is Eve after all, but let's have a look at that. This is YTAC 2, and below here is Delve. This is the stronghold, right? Barbarians at the gate in the north. In order for the Imperium to jump into Fountain or to defend YTAC 2, they have to go through a gate. There is no other way. They might be able to do what the bombers did and run around out here. Run around. It's 44 jumps, but they might be able to run around. You don't do that with Supercapitals, though, and that's what you're going to need to take on a different Supercapital fleet. So I think YTAC 2 will go down undefended in a serious way. You may see Subcapitals go up there and try to pick off a thing or two or to create some interference, but that may not work. All right, some interesting information here from chat. So I just want to read some of this stuff because these guys that watch this show know a lot more than is in me. So there's some real veterans. Triumvirate used Shield Supers. Okay, I didn't know that, as did Ranger Regiment. That's interesting. Both those groups are big groups. Ranger Regiment was part of Guardians of the Galaxy or Dead Coalition. And now they are a part of Legacy, I believe.
They're part of the Imperium.
Oh, shoot. I got them confused with someone else. I got them confused with
Siberian
Siberian
Squads
Squad.
was the one that joined Legacy.
Sorry, they're Russian. Siberian Squad is in Legacy. Ranger Regiment, the group I was just talking about, did go to the Imperium along with Dracarys. So those two groups were former Dead Coalition in the Imperium. Thanks. Triumvirate has kind of disappeared, especially as a Supercapital group. And they do go dormant when their leader is busy in real life. So hopefully we'll see them come back. They have come back a total of 8 times. So they come and go quite a bit.
Yeah, most of the corporations from Triumvirate ended up forming a new alliance called Conflict Theory, which is in Losec, and I've mainly seen them flying alongside either Snuffed Out or Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
And Rebecca is another group that formed because someone's leader went dormant. In this case, they're almost all ex-Black Legion.
Yes, that's what it was. Rebecca is Black Legion, yeah. I've heard that name. It's such an interesting name. It's a really good movie by Alfred Hitchcock called Rebecca. Actually, let me look them up. Well, I'll do it next show. We'll save something for next time. Get to know that group a little bit better. So what else did you see out there today? Was there anything else?
I was mainly just sitting on Tether, on the Fortizar on the Keepstar grid, looking scary. So the Imperium didn't try to hit the Supercaps. That's all I did, and I didn't really play that much else in the day.
But you were there. You saw it happen.
Yeah, I saw it happen, briefly warped in to shoot the Keepstar, and didn't really have much time to do much else today.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming by. So I'll just make a few announcements here. Due to real life and how COVID works and how everybody's at home, either it's, whoever has a job or whoever has school, we're all here at the same time. That was okay during the summer. It became too hard to stream in the mornings for me since that was really the most busy time. But this is the new hour where I will be getting on normally by myself or with a researcher like Gregorian here. You might see 2 or 3 different researchers that work with me to put together what's going on in EVE Online every day. And so it'll be a little less conversational than it was, a little more directed to the statistics to mark the time. So if people want to, they can reference the show later to say what happened on that one day. We'll try to give you insight into interpreting the stuff that we read and the stuff that we find when we find it. And in addition to that, we'll try to give you some prepared material that is very focused on analyzing some aspect of EVE Online that we think is worth looking at. But that's all that we have today as far as the news. And I want to thank you guys for coming around. We will see you tomorrow. The same time, that is about midnight UTC and 8 o'clock Eastern time in the US, 5 p.m. Pacific time. And if you have some story that you want to tell, get in touch with myself or Artemis Albosa on Talking in Stations Discord. We want to interview and surface and expose other players that are not the ones that we always hear about, but maybe players that have interesting stories and experience and have been around a while or are new and already making their mark. So we're totally open to sharing the airwaves with other players, and nobody is too unimportant and nobody is too important. So just let us know. Thanks. Okay, we're going to do a quick raid. Thank you guys for coming by again. I really appreciate it. And there is no 1-2 raid this hour. I think I saw, yes, we're going to go ahead to Lasers and Lace. That's a new program. It's females. I believe I see Drade in there. He must be visiting because he's not a regular. And check this out. It might be interesting for you. It is EVE Online players, but it's from a female perspective. We're going to raid them now. Enjoy the show.